What's going on, everybody? And welcome to episode 61. I'm your host, Marcus. And in this episode, we are talking about the flaw. What is the flaw? I think a lot of different times we think that things need to be perfect. And I've been really reflecting a lot on different things that I've been personally working on and trying to understand. I always try to be successful in whatever route I take. And that's always something to strive for. I always think you need to do your best at what you're doing. But I think a lot of times we look at flaws as being something bad. And I mean, you can depict a lot of different things in life, right? I think a lot of ads that you see, a lot of people you perhaps see on Instagram, and to see their life, they look so much happier. And I think a lot of different times when you look at an ad, they try to capture that happy moment that when you perfect whatever this thing is, you're happy. You're in the state of bliss. And I think a lot of different times, we forget that life has up and downs and that it is so imperfect. It is very flawed in a lot of different ways. And for whatever reason tonight, I just started really looking at that, really looking at flaws as what really makes us human, what really makes us happy. Because when you look at people, if you're in relationships or you look like you have kids or friends or family, and there's particular flaws, but you notice that a lot of times these flaws they can drive you up the wall sometimes, and it's in the absence of those flaws that you miss people, you miss imperfections in people because it makes us human. It brings us back to what we truly are. We're imperfect. And as much as we try to hide that, and as much as we try to strive for perfection, so I think some people come at it a lot harder than other people when trying to perfect things. And things got to be uh, perfect down almost to the very detail. And in my mind, I have never been that way. I've tried to be that way, and I felt like there was something always wrong with me because I wasn't that way. But I've also found that in the chaos of which I try to take action, which is very imperfect, because a lot of times there is some planning, but not all the infrastructure is there. And I've always found that you know trying to plan every little detail just does not work out because it just is never that way. And every time I see something that tries to depict something, right? You look at architecture and things like that. Everything tries to be perfect down to the detail. And in myself, it's like you're taking a piece of what it's like being human away from it because we are not perfect. There is nothing that is perfect about us. Right? We got chemicals in our body that overwhelm our body to do specific things, to be fearful of things, to go out and try to survive. You have chemicals that are battling against you, right? You are in a relationship that you really enjoy, uh, and you see perfections in somebody, and it makes you like them more because of the fact that they're not perfect. And it reminds myself that I'm not perfect. Nobody is perfect. But can you live with that? And I think in our own lives, I think in our relationships, right, we look for somebody that is closer to what we think is perfect. And I think a lot of times we let society depict what perfect is, not what we choose what perfect is. And it being the flaws, it being those things that make us human, that we will mess up and understand that we will mess up. Don't hold people, uh, don't beat down someone for being human. And I think we hold people to such high regards that, hey, you can't mess up. It's wrong to mess up. And so people are fearful to do anything because they're wrong, that they will mess up. Because we've painted a picture that if you can't do it perfect, then why even try? You'll never achieve this thing. And I see it everywhere. I've even seen it, being in the NFT space, and you see people making art, and then you see the way people judge some art compared to others. And some people like other art than others. But understand that it's all about opinion. And understand that, there are a lot of people out there, and Beeple being one of them, right? Because he's one of the biggest people in that has been in this NFT space that have made a lot of money. Understanding that it's taken him years to even get any recognition, and all it took was one moment. And looking like at today, for whatever reason, again, I was thinking about imperfections and flaws in us all, and how again, when you miss someone or something, it's because of the imperfections, and they make you smile because it brings that sense of humanity. It brings that sense of uh, that we are not perfect at all. That we continue, yes, we continue to try to do better, right? I think we should always try to always present the best version of ourselves, but understand that comes with flaws, and be okay with that, and not beat ourselves down for things that sometimes we may not have control over. And again, we want to hide weaknesses. And I think we're in an era now where it's more appropriate to show that side of weakness that you have, to be vulnerable. Now, I can be vulnerable and still be very confident in who I am, because I know where I've been, and I think I try for people to understand. I try for people to strive for that, to realize that you are imperfect. Nothing you do will be perfect. Your plan will not be perfect. Your relationships will not be perfect. But it is in the pursuit of whatever it is, whatever your journey calls, that you're going to be flawed. There'll be moments in time, you may go a period of time where it seems like you're just hitting on all cylinders, and then there'll be that one moment where you fail. And we hold that one moment into such high regard and forget that it's normal for us to do that. And that, again, we look at family, and we love our family, and we love those people that we love because of flaws. I think we get attracted to what seems like, okay, well, they're like perfect, they're like so much better at specific things. And then I think sometimes you can get hung up on that, and then you look at someone's flaws and you're like, well, wow, they have that flaw. Because I think a lot of times we don't want to see the flaws in ourselves. And I think we've been conditioned to believe that those flaws are bad, that everything must be perfect, everything must be in order. Now, I do agree things should be in order. Things You should always strive to be your best, but I don't think that should compromise who you are at all. I think you should be okay with that and be confident in that, and share with people. Now, I'm not saying that all the time I'm confident, right? I think confidence comes in waves like everything else. I think you can really hit on all cylinders, especially if you're a go getter. You got that constant drip of I've achieved, I've achieved, I've achieved, and so I feel confident in myself to be able to say, well, hey, I may be really confident here, but over here I lack confidence, and I am weak in this area, and I'm faulty. That doesn't make me a bad person, right? I focus my attention on what I'm curious about, what I strive to be. That doesn't mean I'm faulty. We all have different levels of things that we're good at. And that's what makes us who we are. That's what makes the world a beautiful place, is the imperfections and everything. And if you could come at things and look at that and kind of just smile about it and really observe, because I've always been someone who observes. I always love to observe, especially in new environments, because I want to like feel people out on, what they deem appropriate, what they don't deem appropriate, right? What are their interests? Where's their thought process? I've always found that to be really intriguing, because I mean, it not only allows me to understand the person, but uh, on how I relate, on differences we may have, understand that, I want to see that person for who they are. In observing, you do that. In observing the flaws, you see that. And observing, okay, well, they recognize that they messed up, but in the action, you see what their true purpose is, what their true intentions are. And this is why it's easy to tell if someone's true intentions are, is to know that they messed up and how they react to it. Do you own up to it or do you not? And I think a lot of times we don't want to own up to it, because a lot of times we don't accept it in ourselves. We don't accept it in our relationships because we see that in ourselves. And it makes it hard because we're in this constant battle. And I think that's why, life has ups and downs, because if it was always up, life would be boring. You wouldn't actually enjoy it as much as you do now. And if life was always down, right, there would be nothing to look forward to. And why would life be worth going on for if there was nothing that was ever good? But understand that there is always good and there is always bad. They always have to be there. So having flaws is a good thing, because we recognize that in flaws is a true beauty of that we are flawed. We were designed a specific way and we're flawed on purpose. It's on purpose. But yet we try to hide the flaws. Right? Maybe we feel like we aren't pretty enough or not athletic enough, or whatever the case is, right? Not smart enough, or whatever it is. Whatever we bring to the table, whatever we feel we need to be at, because it's different for everybody. Everybody is completely different. And recognize that being flawed is what it is. And we recognize that, when somebody starts to love us, we know our own flaws. And so when they start to love us and show appreciation for us, we have that sense of feeling like they accept the flaws that we have. And then somewhere along the line, you may break up. I'm not saying you will, but sometimes when relationships break apart, it's because we feel like that person uh, sees our imperfections, and as much as we hate our imperfections, because there are times when I don't like some of my imperfections. It's not all the time, but when it does happen, right, your confidence level goes up on other time on some specific times, like compared to other times, and understanding that it does come in waves. And then when you feel like the other person sees your imperfections, that you're being judged because of how much you judge yourself. And so we're projecting what that person is seeing in us that we see in ourselves. And so we hate them for it because we hate ourselves. We hate what we've become. And living in life, I think we go through and we do this a lot more than we think we do. In every relationship we have, it's always a constant, well, what's flawed? Am I more flawed than that person? Or what puts me more towards perfection? Am I painting what I feel is happy for myself? Am I painting what I feel is my perfect story? But the thing is I don't think we know what our perfect story is. And what I've been finding over the past really year and a half has just really been, is I've really been hammering on this whole, follow your intuition, following your gut, following your heart, and where it leads you is where you should be. And it doesn't make sense at all. I'll be 100% honest with you on that. It does not make any sense. But realizing in the imperfections, what a lot of people may judge is what drives us and strives us to do better, to find our happiness, to pursue happiness, right? That pursuit of happiness, and understand that we think that when we achieve these things, it'd be the perfect life. But looking back and following your curiosity, following your intuition, you don't really know what that is. It's defined along the way. And then maybe one day you can look back and really look and see, it was in the imperfections. I mean, it's human to see that we fell, and we kept falling, and then we got back up and we overcome, and we failed again on something new. But because of those failures, I tried this new thing and it worked out, and it failed again. And so I tried it, and considering that I had failed before, I started looking at this and I started overcoming this, right? I had the confidence in myself from previous failures to push forward on this one thing and understand I will fail. Relationships will fail, professional or personal, at some level. But are you willing to pick up the pieces and be willing to do that? That's not just saying, because a lot of times I think a lot of people can get this message misconstrued and think that, well, that means that every bad relationship I should try to make it work. I'm not saying that. There are certain situations that you need to make change. I've always said that every environment you're in, it should be a prospering environment for yourself. But also understand that if there's something really true there, well, I think we will. Some people we outgrow, and I think sometimes people just change dramatically so much that it would never work again. But you have to understand that we are all flawed, and not to hold it against the other person. We're flawed. It's not your fault that you outgrow. That's just who we are. It's what we do. Is we seek change, whether we want to believe that in ourselves or not. We're always seeking change. We want change. As much as you may say, no, I don't like change, you want some sort of change in your life. But whether it's small, whether it's big, you want change. I've always wanted change. I've always saw change. After a while, things don't change. I feel like things need to be, something needs to happen and it needs to change. I've really thoroughly enjoyed a lot of different times in my life when I've seen the flaws in myself. And some people have seen bad parts of myself. I've seen bad parts of myself that I didn't think existed. But it's in the moment. It's not saying that that's who you are character wise, but it's in the moment. And understanding that, flaws, we're all human, and to think that we are not. And I guess this is what gets me angered in some aspects, because people will hold you to this high version of yourself, and you don't put yourself there. People will put you there. Or maybe in your mind you think people will put you there, and then when you mess up, like we know we do, we mess up, and then we knock ourselves down a couple pegs because of it, because we think we're supposed to be perfect, flawless to the end, and that is not the case. You will mess up. You have, again, chemicals running through your body. A lot of times it's hard to overcome those chemicals. It's just natural who we are. We're flawed. We're designed to fail. Just think about that. We are designed to fail in some way, shape, or form. You have overpowering emotions. You have overpowering chemicals in your body. That's not saying that some things you can go on and do and that's okay. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is, I've always talked about being an observer and trying to observe your thoughts and ideas and disconnect that from who you are. The flaws, you disconnect from that, from who you are. That's not who you are. So they're just flaws. And realize that, recognize that they're there, recognize that they will happen, but move on. Just be confident in yourself. Just live life. And don't let this pursuit of perfection like get to you, that you have to look a certain way, that you have to be a certain way, that you have to act a certain way, that you have to do any of these things. You don't have to do anything. I always think you should try to be the best for those people you care about, because they in turn are trying to do the best that they can, but understand that they're flawed. This is where expectations comes in a lot too, because a lot of times people will have high expectations on what the other person should be doing, but we don't communicate expectations. Or instead, if you removed expectations and said, okay, well, I'm going to live my life, either you can be part of it or you cannot. There's certain things, right, that I do believe you need to have boundaries. Like, you shouldn't let people walk all over you. You shouldn't let people treat you like garbage. You should have boundaries and say, okay, well, this isn't working out. And so this is where our time together is over, because I don't agree with that. Yes, we are imperfect, but our time together, right, is something I think you need to make sure that the time spent is serving both you, not just one-sided. Because sometimes it can get very one-sided, right? You try to overlook a lot of imperfections in the other person, but you shouldn't do so to where you are compromised. I don't believe you should ever do it to where you are compromised, because you should look out for yourself. Your state should be good. You shouldn't rely on somebody else to fill a void. That void is for you to maintain, for you to look at your flaws and be okay with them. Now, if somebody's pointing out your flaws, I think that's one of the worst things ever, because I think they're drowned in their flaws. They can't accept the flaws they have in themselves. So it's easier to project your flaws onto yourself because they don't like their flaws. Those people are extremely toxic. Those people are not people you want to be have a prosperous life. I don't believe that at all. You should live a life of imperfection. Because again, if you think that things are supposed to be a certain way, you won't take actions to specific things, because you're worried about, well, if I don't do this, then I'll get judged, or I'll lose money, or I'll do this, or I'll do that. People will judge me. I think I've lost a lot of friends over my current journey. I know I have. I know there's a lot of people that wouldn't accept who I am today as opposed to then. But I think, you get to certain time in your life where you see things differently than a lot of people do. And I think you get with different events that kind of happen in your life, it opens your eyes up to new perspectives on what matters and what doesn't. And you can go on and live a life that you think is okay. And then you realize one day you wake up and you're sick, and things change very fast. Everything changes very fast. Where you thought you had this abundance of time, now that time has dwindled down to who knows how long. It's cut in half, or maybe even in quarters. And then at that point, you wish you would have done more. You wish you wouldn't have judged. You wished you start looking at imperfections. You're like, I really missed this. And before, I was looking at that imperfection and I hated it. I hated it in that person because I hated it in myself. I saw it in myself and I hated it. And it's just being mindful, being aware of it, and looking at the good and the flaws, right? I think we take life way too seriously. And it's about having fun, right? This experience is about having fun. And I think we forget that too much. Why can't we just have fun? Isn't that what it's about, is having fun? Instead of putting stress on ourselves, stress on the ones we love, stress on everybody else, worrying about what's perfect and what's not. Where we can turn and allow ourselves to be imperfect, allow others to accept who we are, because we accept ourselves, we accept them, we know they're going to mess up. But are you willing to work with them? Are you seeing that their true intentions, know that they have flaws? Your intentions know that they have flaws. Your intentions know that you have flaws. And accepting that and working through that is important. This life in general is okay having flaws. It's just okay. And look at those things, those quirks and stuff that you think, man, I really hate that. But that's one thing I really miss about perhaps that person, or I really missed having that person around because of whatever the reason was. A lot of times we could pick out those flaws and again see them in ourselves, and then we don't want a part of it anymore because it just reminds us too much of our flaws. And it goes back to going deep and doing the work internally in yourself. If anything else is to be taken away from this video, is to know that you really have to do work. You really have to look at yourself. You really need to sit down and quit evading the conversation you need to have with yourself. But being okay with the fact that you make mistakes. And that is one of the biggest pills to swallow, is to realize that we're not perfect. But yet we hide behind this perfection, whether that's through Instagram, whether that's through whatever the case is, Facebook, whatever the case. We try to project perfection when inside, we're more concerned about all the faults that we have than what's actually going on. And just living life and being okay, right? Good, bad, or indifferent, it doesn't matter. But I'm going to be okay with my journey because I'm not going to worry about my flaws.